Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. You're looking live out the window, a beautiful shot on the campus of Central Washington University. Thank you so much for tuning in today to our geology live stream. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Let me find how to mute this. Hang on. Out the window. Beautiful shot on the campus of Central Washington University. Thank you. So great to have you here. The local time is 2:50 p.m. Pacific time. And today's date is Thursday, November 13th. Of 2025. If you're watching this in replay, you can skip ahead 10 minutes to the beginning of our episode. Let me give you another shot out the window while I get my earbuds back in. We now have an HDR camera looking out the window, courtesy of Nat the Wonder Boy, who made another visit to the office yesterday. And I'm particularly pleased to see that blue sky. It's been wet all day here in Ellensburg. Very good. Okay. I'm not even sure I'm taking a walk today since I'm a little frazzled with earbuds and muting things and everything else. But we have this wonderful shot to enjoy. And I came in on Tuesday, which was a federal holiday, and spent, a couple of hours really enjoying doing all this. So we have a whole new setup to look at here with the shelf cam. Okay, well, very good. Let me get settled here. I assume we're 5x5. I've already been distracted, not enough to see that. If you could type in 5x5 again, loud and clear. And at the same time, can I say hi to a number of you? I have a couple of quick thank yous as well before we begin today. Sacramento, California, Albany, Oregon, Sandpoint, Idaho, Browns Point, Washington, Sabres in Phoenix, Arizona. Chris is in, Kachemak Bay, Homer, Alaska. Hello, Chris. Yeah, special hello to those watching from far north of here. Springfield, Oregon, pick up the pace. Half Moon Bay, California. I'm down to live suddenly against my will. Sweden, Ellensburg, Washington, Cannon City, Colorado, Whitehorse, Yukon. Hello, Malaga Slide. That's Sharon. Anchorage, Alaska. Bev. Hello. Kevin's in New York. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Condesi is in London, England. It must be about midnight there. Portage, Indiana. Kamloops, BC. I'm down to live again. Don is in Fairbanks, Alaska with a plus 6 degrees Fahrenheit weather report. It's 51 degrees Fahrenheit here in Ellensburg. Excuse me. Normandy Park, Washington. David is in Omaha, Nebraska. DuPont, Washington. Freddie and Nancy are in Ellensburg, Washington. They moved here because of these live programs. They were in Texas and now are living in Ellensburg, Washington. Kalamazoo, Gary. Basingstoke, England. I wasn't expecting to see a bunch of Europeans here. It's pretty late for you guys. Melbourne, Australia. I was hoping to see a bunch of you. Figure of Speechless. Penticton, British Columbia. Templeton, California. And so on. Terrific. I've got a couple of quick announcements and housekeeping. Yes, it's approaching 3 p.m. Pacific time, which is when we're rolling each Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific and each Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific. And we are about to start episode C. Where's that note for the thank yous? Boy, I am distracted. Thank you to a number of you. I lost count, maybe 15 or 20 emails with beautiful photos from Alaska, high quality photos. So I'm getting so many emails now that I can't keep up and cannot thank each person that sends me photos. But thank you. I received them, and I will put them to great use, not today, but I will this winter and beyond. So that was very, very kind. I made one quick comment in the last episode and got a lot of beautiful photos of mountains in Alaska primarily. Nat the Wonder Boy wonders, right now, for those that are so inclined, are you viewing right now in 1080p? Can you go to your gear icon and can you bump it up to 1440? And does that look better for you? And Nat the Wonder Boy thinks there's a chance that some of you might have the capability to watch in 4K. I think we're pumping this broadcast out in 4K, but it's a bit of an experiment, and I'm not sure if anybody out there is able to see us in 4K. And I'm only talking to a subset of you. Most of you are unaware and don't care about the resolution, but a few of us picky people care about such things. So I'll glance and see what you've got to say in just a second. Looks like Bob Hildebrand is in the live chat again today. Jerome Lessman, wonderful to see. No shit, 4K looks good. Seriously, you're on your end. You're seeing 4K. You are. Okay. Wow. Okay. I guess I lost my bet. I don't know anything about technology, but I'm surprised. So that's good. I got to start thinking about other things, but thank you. Also, thank you to Bob Hildebrand. Bob, thank you for doing that surprise bonus slideshow. Bob recorded it yesterday morning. We put it in the Alaska Video Library yesterday afternoon. Bob was answering a bunch of questions that came up from the live Q&A in the chat. Stop. Thank you, Bob, for making a slideshow responding to common questions that showed up after Session B on Saturday. Boy, settle down. Talking to myself. Settle down. Maybe I do need to take a walk. Let's go through the stations, make sure they're functional. There's the Keynote second monitor. There's getting my head out of there. There's the brisk and beautiful looking iPad. There's Docky with water in it. And here's Shelf Cam, and here is Window Cam. Okay, it's official. I am taking a walk. I need to get something out of my throat yet again. Taught today at noon and was really screaming in there. We had a good session, but I can feel my voice is rough. So I need to clear my throat a little bit as well as my mind. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoy this episode. Let me give you, I'll stick with this Window Cam here. We will start in 3 minutes, hopefully. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode C of Alaska A to Z. Thank you for coming back. It's been 5 days since we've done this. We do these Thursday afternoons at 3 p.m., and that's what we're doing right now, Pacific time, and Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. And it's been 5 days since Saturday morning at 8 a.m., and when I signed off with episode B, I said, well, we'll see you for episode C, and we will resume with Bob Hildebrand's custom slideshow that pertains to his brand new paper, the 2025 paper on the Tintina Rocky Mountain Trench Fault. Well, that's not what we're doing, and that's part of the story here today. I really apologize for this throat thing. So this one's loose, this one is unstructured, this one is an improvisation, essentially. And there's a chance that this will be a memorable episode. I'm putting pressure on myself now, but there's a chance that we will be using today's content for the rest of the winter. I'm that excited about what I have stumbled into, and of course, it's from Bob Hildebrand. So my aim today is to tell you the story of how I got to this improvisation, and we may, if we really have a rapid pace, resume Bob's slideshow in full force towards the end, but I'm guessing that will be back towards Saturday when we really finish that out. We will return to Bob Hildebrand's slideshow, but we are talking about Bob Hildebrand's ideas, and I'll say one more introductory comment, and then we'll go right into it. We've got more than 600 live viewers here. Thank you for being here. I'm learning with you, and it's a learning community. We've already established that in the first 2 episodes. I've established a bunch of things in the first 2 episodes. But if you are evolving with your thought, whatever it is, but in our case, thinking about the tectonics of Alaska, I'm talking about myself, but I think it's for many of us. If we get some information too soon, like it's premature and we're not ready for it, it just goes right through us. It just goes right through. Nothing sticks. And I guess if you get the information too late, like you're done with the learning project or you're done with the alphabet, and then you get something a month later, you're like, oh my God, if I had known that a month ago, I would have leaned into it strongly. Well, I got an email from Robert S. Hildebrand on Monday morning with a little prompting from me. That's part of the story. And it was perfectly timed for where I am. And so I decided I'm going to scramble the schedule. That's the benefit of not having a rigid plan. And I'm just going to spend today leaning in to what I think is a very exciting set of ideas. Now, a week from now, a month from now, maybe we'll abandon the whole thing and it doesn't work. But I think today possibly is what we will use. By the time we get up to Alaska, we'll still be using today's discussion, titled, How Many Collisions? That was my question to Bob Hildebrand. Okay, well, let's go. Let's get into it. He goes to the second monitor, and I've tried to lay this out for myself because it's quite rough. I'm not totally sure how this is going to go, but, that's part of the excitement of it. Speaking to Bob Hildebrand, who's in the live chat again today. Bob, I liked what we did last time with you texting me a few ideas during the episode, and then I read the texts after the top of the hour. So let's do that again if you feel inspired to do that. I already see there's one text here, so it's probably you already. But I like that. So let's try that again. So Bob, text away when things come up where you want to clarify or whatever else. The regular viewers of the YouTube channel saw that Bob did a special mini slideshow pertaining to or responding to some of your questions at the end of episode B, which was unexpected and deeply appreciated by all of us, Bob. So thank you for the extra effort. Okay, so if you're new to us, you need to go back and watch A and B. What can I say? We're talking about Hildebrand the entire month. We got 3 more episodes after today talking about Hildebrand. Is that right? Yeah. This is the paper that is the centerpiece of our focus, the enigmatic Tintina Rocky Mountain Trench Fault, a hidden solution to the Baja BC controversy. Thank you to viewer Jeff from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area, who emailed me this. So Nick, I just used a distance tool in Google Maps. Let me get myself out of here. To trace the whole thing, Southern Rocky Mountain Trench, Northern Rocky Mountain Trench, Tintina Fault, from Montana to Galena, Alaska. 2,091 miles. Look out, San Andreas. You're small potatoes now. Thank you, Jeff. And I am receiving hundreds of emails now. You can tell when I start one of these live streams, there's just tons and tons of emails. And I simply mention that to say thank you for all the input. I read every email. I just don't have the time to respond to each email. But this is a community, and that feedback is very important. Most of it's positive. Some of it's not really negative, but it's suggesting things that I should do differently. But I know who I am, and I know what I want to do. But even that is helpful to hear what you have to say. Okay, good. So yes, our early focus, this early in the episode, in the alphabet, is the Tintina Fault. And that's what Jeff was just pointing out. And I think he swung it through here as well, I believe. There's other major faults that we'll be coming to sooner than later. Denali Fault, Border Ranges Fault, and so on. Okay, just setting the tone here. Now, Bob Hildebrand in the new paper, and even the paper 10 years ago, said, well, if we've got this major structure, the Southern Rocky Mountain Trench Fault, that needs to be followed south. And it's concealed, but there's evidence that Hildebrand has that we want to just bring that thing right down next to the Grand Canyon. And it continues over here, over by San Antonio, I guess, in the subsurface. And it's not just the green line, of course, it's all this other stuff, which we have yet to discuss in the alphabet. But if you restore, if you undo that 1,300 kilometers of northward motion on the Tintina Rocky Mountain Trench Fault, you get that stuff back to where it was originally. In other words, you restore the Lewis and Clark line with the Texas line, then suddenly we've got Idaho down here and next to the Mojave. And we've got the Swakane biotite gneiss of Wenatchee next to the Orocopia schist in Southern California. And you've got a big portion of the Canadian Rockies down here next to the Colorado Plateau. There's the Carmax Volcanics down here in California, essentially. And now, of course, it's in Yukon. So we begin the story. We begin the story of how I got into this improv experience today. Because, again, I thought we would just resume with Bob's slides. Let's do that. And this is what I was doing with Bijou the cat on Monday morning. I took Sunday off, did some stuff with Liz, really enjoyed it. So now it's Monday morning, and it's before the sun comes up. And I'm saying, okay, well, let me start thinking about what I want to do on Thursday in Session C. Let me play Bob's next slide that we didn't get to last time, which is from his slideshow tied to his new paper. And I had some thoughts as soon as I started getting about a minute into this. So let's get a minute into this and see if I can replicate what Bijou and I were thinking on Monday morning.
First, there are two different age thrust belts which approach the Tintina Rocky Mountain Trench system from the east and broadly occur on opposite sides of the easterly flowing Peace River, or nowadays what is known as the Peace Arm and Williston Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the Williston Lake area in greater detail.
Thank you. Nice.
Right here. In the Muskwa Ranges north of the river, the East Vergent fold thrust belt of the Kachika Trough comprises thrust faults, rock units, and facies that widen and continue northward into the Selwyn Basin, where rocks and thrusts were intruded by 99 to 92 million-year-old post-collisional plutons of the Tombstone Mayo Suites. Whereas in the Heart Ranges, which lie to the south of the river, the well-known Cordilleran fold thrust belt of the southern Canadian Rockies, which is temporally complex and has a major pulse of thrusting 54 to 50 million years, as documented by Ben Vanderplume and co-worker.
Oh boy.
These thrust faults transect and overthrust folds and thrust faults of the older northern belt extending southward from Selwyn Basin. Further north and to the west of the Selwyn Basin, Kachika Trough, Thrusting appears to have been related to the 100 million year peninsular range's orogeny, and there the Tintina Fault is readily recognized and mapped as a major strike slip fault because it is younger than the thrusts to the east.
Yes.
However, south of the Peace River area, where many thrusts are younger than 54 million years, an equivalent strike slip fault is unrecognized. Instead, the topographic southern Rocky Mountain Trench is generally considered to be dominated by normal or small displacement strike slip faults, as we saw earlier.
Okay, Bob. Okay.
These contrasting...
Okay. So I'm trying to recreate my thinking as I'm sitting there in the dark with a cat in my lap and Liz reading the morning news in the next room. Headphones on. I just get depressed. I get sad. I'm like, I'm supposed to start talking about this segment we just heard, and I don't know anything of it. I don't know where I am. I've got a couple of the concepts, but most of it I just don't get. And I was getting sad, and I was getting frustrated. And I share that with you because I think everybody has the experience. When they read Bob Hildebrand's stuff, they go through that. Now, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but I've heard this from all the geologists that I think are top shelf, including Chris Mattinson upstairs, who I talked to in the hallway yesterday. Chris has been watching the episodes. He has the same thing. Chris's phrase was, I just need something to grab hold of in all those pages and pages and pages of Hildebrand, and even this with slideshow where we can hear from Bob directly. I can't quite grab a hold of something and just kind of get a beachhead somewhere, and then I can kind of work out from there. So I was sitting there Monday morning just staring at the wall for like 15 minutes straight, thinking about this. And Liz eventually said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, yes, dear, I'm fine. I'm just thinking. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do on Thursday. She's like, "It's Monday morning." I'm like, well, I've got to start thinking about this. And as I was starting to think about thrust faults and how to deal with the thrust faults that Bob's talking about, and there's more than one generation of thrust faults, and he gets right into this, we won't listen to it, but he gets into plutons invading from below. I'm like, now hold on. I remember doing that. I remember talking about a collision and thrust faults delayed after the collision and plutons invading from below. Do you remember doing that? So I was stuck, and I was staring at that wall, and I remembered an email that Bob sent a month ago. Bob sends me all these emails. I keep them all. I organize them. I have one little system where I have them all in one place. And I went back to try to think about what Bob had sent me, plus me remembering what I was doing a few years ago. This is what I remember doing. I don't know if you were with us, but during the crazy Eocene, early in the alphabet, episode D, Basil Tikoff was a live guest. We were talking about docking Rangalia. This is exactly 4 years ago. And I think I need to exit this and minimize this. And I've got a little segment queued up. Let's listen to a minute of this. And this is what I remembered from the distant past as I was sitting in that chair in front of the fireplace on Monday morning. Have you ever gone to a fireworks show? I have distinct memories as a kid. Jefferson, Wisconsin. Golf course. Dairy Queen's right over there. Hot, muggy night. 4th of July. Whole family. I'm probably 5 years old. My sisters and I, my mom and dad. And I couldn't just enjoy the fireworks. For some reason, I kept looking at the men way over there in the parking lot with the trash can and the torches. The guys setting off the fireworks. I don't really know what they were doing over there, but I was worried about them. I didn't want them to get hurt. But you know this experience of that fireworks show, don't you, sitting on that picnic blanket? What is it? Fireworks. There's a delay. Can we do that? Can we have the docking be our thump? I'll do thump. That's easier for me to say. Thump. And then inland, can we have fireworks? That says thump. That's not an R. But this is happening 100 million years ago, and this is happening after. There's a delay between the thump and the fireworks. They're not happening simultaneously. It's a cause and effect. Let's just go like making up numbers, obviously. Let's do that. 100 million years ago, thump. Between 99 and 80, all sorts of compressional things happening. You're like, okay, a couple of little thrust faults. I think you're stretching things here a little bit. No, wrong. I think you're being too creative here. I don't think this is real. Well, I think there is a number 2, and I think it's plutons. Blobs of magma that are forming shortly after our docking, and that's also part of the fireworks show. It's not just earthquakes on the thrust faults, it's also magmas invading from below. Magmas invading from below. Is that real? Is that something to look for? If we have a bunch of thrust faults and granitic bodies, plutons, that are solid now, but were active between 99 and 80, is that a way to reconstruct where Rangelia first hit? We're just playing with it. Okay. All right. So that got the juices flowing, at least partly. I was happy to find that clip. Come on. Okay, if I can find my keynote again. Oh boy, where did it go? There. Thank you. I got stuff flying all over the place here. Keep it like that. Okay, so that was big. If for those that were remembering 4 years ago, we were doing that. We had the connection. Okay, I need to, before I lose some of you, I'm approaching 800 live viewers. Thank you. So we're talking about collisions today. Collisions between North America and something out in the water. And we were hammering the idea that there was one big collision. You remember it. It was 100 million years ago. Rangelia and friends hitting North America. And that clip reminds us all that we were talking about the evidence for the collision. And so far in that series, we were talking about thrust faults inland of the collision and magmas invading those thrust faults from below. No talk back then about why the magmas were coming up, but the fireworks idea was that the collision happens and then shortly afterward, the thrust faults and the magmas coming up from below. We're going to use that again today. And I'm setting up ultimately the blue ribbon email from Bob Hildebrand, which came Monday morning. Okay? So, adding to this, and this all got me going to send an email to remember that email from Bob, is that a month ago I was really on a roll, and I was posting things for the Alaska Video Library almost every day. This is last month, right? This is not 4 years ago. So Bob had a different slideshow from a professional talk. I posted it. I did an interview with Cam Davidson, totally unrelated to Bob's stuff, but I was just kind of trying to visit with all sorts of folks who had some Alaska knowledge. And so Cam spent a 30-minute episode with me talking about magmas up in the Chugach terrain. Brandon Keogh, who will be part of the Purdue team that will be up to the Talkeetna Arc next summer. I met Brandon for the first time, literally 5 minutes before the Zoom interview. We put that one on the Alaska Video Library. And then these two guys, who are coworkers and friends, Sean Regan from the University of Fairbanks, Alaska, University of Alaska in Fairbanks, and Trevor Waldine, South Dakota School of Mines. I did a 30-minute Zoom interview with Sean. I'd never met him before. And Trevor did 2 Zoom interviews with me, and he also flew out from South Dakota to Ellensburg to give a talk in person. These are the 2 talks that I want to fold into our story here today. So Sean, I'm going to take a clip from Sean, if I can do this without screwing up again. Just a little sampler of Sean Regan. And Sean will be back. He's watching the series, and he will be somehow involved as we continue and get closer to details in Alaska. 2808. I've got it queued up. Here's Sean visiting with me a month ago.
They're broad zones of inverted metamorphism that all are recording top to the west deformation during contractional uplift of, the rocks to the east over rocks to the west.
Over rocks to the west. Okay, can you stop your share for a second? So I think I'm grabbing this. Are we talking about a major collisional event?
Yeah, or certainly the end of it is how I would picture that. And there's other data sets that are kind of in line with that, I guess. Like the arc, we know the arc is migrating from 100 to 65, 70. It's moving west to east at a rate of about 2 millimeters per year, 2 kilometers per million year, from Robinson Cecil's excellent data and George Carroll's data as well. But right about this time, that arc stops migrating,
which arc are we talking about right now?
The western one. So the arc beneath Insular is migrating from west to east. From about 100 million years ago to 60.
Okay, I'm building towards something. I don't know if you can feel it, but I'm building towards this email with Bob. And I was new to Alaska. I would explain that to each of these folks that I was interviewing. I was lost most of the time. I couldn't keep track of which arc we were talking about. And all these folks have deep knowledge. Some are young, some are older. They're all generously giving their time to what I'm trying to do here. And I was telling them a month ago, I'm just looking for narratives that I might explore in Alaska. So Sean did his job, and he did a beautiful job. I really enjoyed meeting him. Let's do one more of these, and then I'm going to go to the Bob portion with this email that hopefully you can't wait to hear what the hell was in the email at this point. You're like, what is going on? Okay, so that was Sean's portion. But I wasn't expecting such. Okay. And so Trevor Waldine, who some of you have gotten to know quite well, and that visit to Ellensburg really fleshed out a bunch of things with Trevor. So I met him at the Penrose Conference 2 years ago, did 2 recorded Zoom interviews with him. He came to Ellensburg, gave the talk, visited with a bunch of us. That was fun. Trevor will definitely be a big part of what we do this winter, and he has been watching at his home in South Dakota. Here's a portion of the live Q&A at the end of Trevor's in-person talk, just down the hall here at Central Washington University. Cue it up, boy. 1/1938.
Board and younger magnetism inboard. What do you attribute that to?
That's a great question. So the question is that here along this figure, I've got 2 phases of magmatic rocks. The dark red is older and it is outboard, meaning nearer to the coast. And the younger stuff is in the light pink. It's inboard, meaning nearer to the continental interior. What is the explanation for that? Generally, distribution of magmatic rocks along plate margins is not always systematic because it's largely tied to slab dip. If you change the dip of the slab, you can widen the arc or push the arc in one direction or another. So it could be related to that. I don't think that's exactly what's going on here. My take on this distribution of magmatic rocks is that the older stuff is quite flattened and it largely follows that suture. So there's plutons being placed into the lower crustal suture and they're also being intensely flattened as they're being in place. So this will work. The areal extent of that magmatic belt is much smaller than it would have been if it wasn't deformed. So we took a big Pluton and we just smacked it down to something very, very thin. So that's part of it. Then the other part.
Smacked it down. We're talking about collisions. Both these guys talking about collisions. And we're now ready to sink our teeth into the improvisation today and getting ready, because I don't know if you're feeling what I was feeling on Monday morning, but I feel like I'm kind of there, but I'm missing how to tie a bunch of these observations together. That's what I needed, and that was the perfect timing that we're about to see together. Hopefully this will work. I don't know if it's going to, but hopefully that's the case. So I emailed Bob that morning and said, I remember this email that you sent back in October, Bob. Let me remind you what you told me, and then I've got a question for you. Here's the Bob email to me after watching the Sean Reagan show, after watching the Trevor Waldine. Bob's watching every one of these videos and sending me comments immediately, which I love. And it doesn't all have to be rosy. This one's not particularly rosy for me and those two young bucks, but it's progress. Here we go. October 14th. Hey, Nick. The 110 to 105 million-year-old extension of the Yukon-Tanana, as mentioned by Sean Reagan, makes good sense, as extensional collapse during hinterland exhumation of the 124 million-year-old severe orogeny. Okay, I'm lost already. Bob has talked about hinterland exhumation. He's talked about the 124 million-year-old event, but it washes through me. I'm not ready for it. I was surprised, talking to me, Nick, I was surprised that you didn't mention that, as it's in several of my papers. Or have you not understood the reconstructions and their implications? I'd be happy to talk to you about those if you'd like. These guys, Trevor and Sean, including Trevor in his lecture the other day at your place, Ellensburg, they don't appear to understand origins and their collisional hinterlands at all. The Coast Plutonic Belt is a classic hinterland belt, high-grade metamorphism, exhumation, post-collisional breakoff, tonalitic and granodioritic plutons, the opposite of arcs, which are low-standing, low-grade, and have pre-collisional plutons ranging from gabbro to granite. Okay, we're not to the good part yet. In fact, I don't even remember those two paragraphs. Bob comes at this from a positive point of view. It may sound critical, but he's just pushing all of us to like, would you please read my stuff? It's there in black and white. I don't think you understand my stuff, he's saying basically. And he can say that to almost everyone, regardless of experience. Here's the paragraph that I remembered staring at my wall on Monday morning. There are three main Cretaceous collisions in the North American Cordillera, Nick. 124 million-year-old severe, 100 million-year-old peninsular ranges, and a roughly 85 million-year-old laramide. The collisions are quite short-lived, although their effects, such as exhumation and post-collisional magmatism, last for millions of years. Remember that if the main driving force for plate tectonics is slab pull, then once the lower plate breaks off, the collision is essentially over. That's why understanding the difference between arc and break-off plutons is critical to proper orogenic analysis. So a month ago, I remembered that paragraph, but I still didn't totally get it. I still don't totally get it right now, but somehow I can read paragraphs and have a sense that they're important or not. I don't really know why, but that one felt important. Maybe just because he's outlining three major collisions, which I should have known at this point, and I just don't. So after the 15-minute long stare at the wall and remembering and then finding this email, I emailed Bob. And I said, Bob, let me remind you what you told me a month ago. This is me Monday morning. I would want to flesh out. I like what you said in that email snippet, and I want to flesh this out for episodes C and D. 3 main collisions, 124, 100, 85. I want to start tossing things into those 3 big buckets. It's bucket season, everybody. Who did we hit 124 million years ago? Where can we find the greater than 124 million year old rocks, oceanic terrain today? Same for the 85 million year old thing. I think I know about the 100 million years because that was all we did with Basil Tikoff and others with the hit and run discussions 4 winters ago. Are there more lesser collisions since 200 million years ago? Nevadan, Silesia, others? I was hopeful that I could get something before today. And I got something from Bob Hildebrand 2 hours later, late Monday morning. So Bob, thank you for this email that we're about to read together, and then I'm going to do some drawing on Docky to try to translate your email, which I just thought was so valuable. And again, this is the part that I think we may be using the rest of the winter. (10:45 a.m. November 10th). Hi Nick, what's C&D? Conquest and Destroy? 1. There are at least 3 Jurassic collisions, all involving the accretion of arcs. They are easily found west of the western Sierra. They're easily found in the western Sierra Nevada and Klamath of Oregon, and are well known, but most seem to ignore them. See the figures attached. We'll look at them in a second. 2. There are 3 during the Cretaceous. We just talked about them. Severe, Peninsula Ranges, and Laramide. Nick, I'm not sure why you mention oceanic terrains, as they are generally subducted beneath the upper plates prior to collision. So the 124 hit is the severe, known from the fold and thrust belt in Utah and Wyoming, and in the Omanika belt of Canada. I have not tried to resolve the details of the Omanika, but it needs to be done. I'm going to continue, but this is the Mesozoic. Oh, sure. This is the Mesozoic. Starting at the beginning of the Triassic period, the Jurassic period, heard of it, the Cretaceous period. 252 million years ago until 66. Mass extinctions on both sides. You can then break the Triassic into early, middle, and late, early, middle, and late, early, and late. I'm very rusty with really anything going on in the American West older than 100 million years ago because I've been so focused on Baja, BC, that's younger than 100, focused on the Wrangellia and friends hitting us, or us hitting Wrangellian friends, that's exactly 100 million years ago. Silesia is 50 million years ago, that's up here. So, I have been with you learning a bunch of exotic terrain stuff, but it's been the accretion and translation of those things. I haven't hardly thought at all about the Jurassic or the Triassic for sure. Well, we're doing that really for the first time today. And Bob Hildebrand just told us by email that there are 3 major collisions in the Cretaceous. This is severe Peninsula Ranges orogeny and Laramide orogeny, and 3 lesser orogenies or collisions in the Jurassic. Orogeny just means mountain belt. Okay? So there should be 6 different generations of mountains, 6 different generations of thrust faults, 6 different generations of magmas invading from below. Are you starting to see it now? Like these are 6 buckets. And we can take trinkets like this thrust fault and this Pluton and this, that, and this, everything. There's more to the email in a second, but I want to do one more thing with Docky. So if we just have a simple collision and we have an exotic terrain, which is some sort of island arc or maybe a major microcontinent out in the water, like Rangelia and friends, and we have our collision, whether it's 124 or 100 or 85, there's the collision, and then the fireworks, thrust faults, where we take pizza boxes, we take slivers of this crust and shove it on top of older material. No, wrong. Older material shoved on top of younger. Older material shoved on top of younger, simultaneously. And then at the same time, invading those thrust faults from below with magmas. Now, why are these magmas happening? Hildebrand calls them post-collisional slab failure magmas. Post-collisional slab failure magmas, as opposed to what? The opposite is a volcanic arc. A volcanic arc implies subduction. And so now we have two things to look for, according to Bob. Thrust faults, post-collisional slab failure magmas, and there's even more. So if you have that, I'm just going to keep rolling now. I feel like I'm finally locked in. It's been a rocky, no pun intended, first half an hour for me personally. I think I'm finally in the groove here. Hopefully you're still with us. Let's go back to this blue ribbon email. The Peninsula Ranges orogeny is 100 to 84 million years old or so, and I found it throughout the Cordillera from Alaska to South America. There are 3 slant papers that summarize all this detail. Okay, let's hopefully not lose my place. But today, if you click on Alaska at nickzentner.com, a new slant, 1, 2, and 3. So there's another book, essentially, waiting for you by Hildebrand from a couple years ago, which focuses completely on what he calls the Peninsula Ranges collision. That's North America colliding with Rangelia in France. Okay, back to this. The Laramide, 85, extends from South America to Alaska and beyond. The big question there, does it mark hemispheric subduction flip and final destruction of the Panthalasus, as we speculated in 2014? Don't ask me, I don't know anything about that. That's me talking. That is the broad framework. You love it. One needs to better understand the Cretaceous development. Don't forget, Nick, that some of them involve fragments of North America accreted earlier and later rifted away, only to return at some later date. It can be really confusing, and that's one problem. The Siglocks of the world, using plate reconstructions, cannot really explain because they can't deal with small rifted marginal seas. So that's mantle tomography, that's Karn Siglock. Again, he's not trying to be negative, he's just pointing out what he is doing and how it's difficult to keep track of all the detail that he has and how it works with some other data sets and doesn't seem to work with other data sets. Each collision has post-collisional break-off plutons, I just drew them, which is key. And for the Cretaceous, distinct sedimentary rocks in the western interior seaway. Perhaps the reason most don't entertain the ideas is that then their dogma of long-term eastward subduction would be untenable, and they'd have lots of catching up to do. Better just ignore it, as Mott Green says. Hey, did you read the essay that I sent? No, Bob, sorry, I haven't gotten to that yet. The email goes on. We're still in the blue ribbon email. Are you still with me? I hope that you can see this is all laid out on a silver platter for us. And this is the framework that I thought maybe I would stumble into in December or something, but I've got it now. Will it pay off for us as we continue to work with this? And you're like, I think I see 10% of it. I can see a little bit more, but not a whole lot more for you. But I see enough here that I think we can just start going to all these different places and put the trinkets into the 6 buckets. There's more in this one email sent 2 hours later after I bothered him on an early Monday morning. Let's go back to it. The only belts that I have restored to some degree are the 100 million year old and the 85 million year old collisions. So there's still plenty to do, as most of these origins, mountain building events, occur over the length of the North American Cordillera and beyond. As I've studied the geology, I can see fragments of the Jurassic collisions, but have not ever tried to resolve their distribution over the length of the Cordillera. But they'll play a big part of your Alaska work on the Talkeetna. So now he's steering me a little bit and helping me see that I'm going to be going, the Talkeetna is back here. The Talkeetna is back in the Jurassic, or for all I know, it's even down in the Triassic. So I didn't know that until I'm starting to realize that the volcanic arc that Mike, Eddie, Ken Ridgway, Brandon from Purdue are going to be looking at is buried way the hell down here. So now I suddenly have to go back and keep track of all these collisions. I'm energized by this. I don't know if you are. I'm energized by it. My ideas, back to Bob, my ideas on the Cordillera are generally fueled by trying to separate out the various accretionary events so that they can be restored and Cordilleran development resolved. In other words, rather than one big orogenic region, I am getting finer and finer resolution as I learn more. Note that I view the Tintina Rocky Mountain Trench Fault, as just the oldest transpressional plate boundary related to the northward migration of the Pacific Ocean plates relative to North America. Slice and migrate, or dock and slice, is continuing today as the San Andreas and Fairweather faults. It's really the same story as Silesia and subsequent northward translation of Yakutat. As this complicates an already complicated story, as there is simply no place in the Cordillera where you can find a complete and intact east-west cross-section of the origin. You'd think I'd have that in my head. I didn't have that in my head. Every collision with its thrust faults, its post-collisional slab failure magmas, and sedimentary basins, every one of those collisions has been cut in half, at least. And half of it's up in Alaska, and the other half's down in Washington. Or half of it's in Washington, and the other half's down in Mexico, or whatever. Even Silesia, the most recent of all these major collisions, has been cut in half. Half of it's in South Alaska, half of it's in Washington. So even that framework, that's another bucket. If there's two halves to every origin, let's get them back together. I kind of had that, but I didn't have it that succinctly. There's one more paragraph with this email, and it's my favorite, I think, of the whole frickin' thing. The methodology to resolve these issues is clear. 1. Understand the initial collisional event as bracketed by thrusting and post-collisional magmatism. In other words, the thrusting's going to happen sooner, the post-collisional magmatism is going to happen later. I think that's what he's saying. 2, understand the displacement on the strike-slip fault so that the origin can be restored. Got it? In order to do this, one needs to go back to basic geological observations, as there's a lot of bogus inferences, models out there that will steer you into incorrect conclusions. That's a difficult task, as models are deeply ingrained and held. Does that help? Do you have questions? Well, sure, for the rest of the alphabet I do. But for right now, it's in color, in all this Hildebrand stuff. Did I look at this before? Kinda. Am I looking at more carefully now? You bet your ass I am. He's got 6 major collisions. How much are people going to love those or hate them as the winter goes on? just looking at sedimentary units in, I guess, the Rocky Mountains. Here's the Sevier, here's the Peninsula Ranges, there's the Laramide. There's our three big collisions. And here it is. Again, it's laid out. Okay, there's a bunch of relief here for me. I may be going too far here. We got 15 more minutes. There's a bit of relief for me, just personally. I'm just taking a break to give you a chance to catch your breath. 840 live viewers. Part of the relief is I'm finally sitting down and reading some of this stuff. I've been meaning to do it for 10 years. So that's probably true for most geologists. If they feel like Hildebrand's got some things to say, they just can't find the time to sit down and read it. And I'm guilty, since I'm teaching and advising, and there's a lot going on this last couple of weeks, for instance. I'm guilty of not going back to the papers themselves, but I'm cheating by getting some kind of, silver platter emails from Bob, who can apparently just do this while he's eating breakfast and barely lifting a finger. I don't know. But the next relief is I don't think I have to work that hard, at least this month, to start making correlations and putting things in buckets, because this frickin' wizard has been doing it. West to east, mainland Alaska, British Columbia, Washington, Nevada, down to Mexico. Everything here is tied to the 100 million year old event. He's got the age of the arc before the collision. He's got some sedimentary stuff. Okay, whatever. Age of the collision, it's all roughly 100. Post-collisional slab failure stuff. And yes, Bob Hildebrand is a fan for many of these collisions to have subduction away from North America. It's slanting away from North America. It's not slanting. The subduction is not slanting towards North America. And that's a minority opinion, for sure. But we're going to be thinking about that and coming inferred with that slab failure. Sorry. So if you adopt or think seriously at least about Bob's model, and he's not the only one talking about westward subduction or slanting of this subducting ocean plate away from North America, if you're doing this, then suddenly you have magmas that are arc before the collision and then these slab failure magmas after the collision. So I think we need Jeff Tepper. I know Bob's laid it all out, but Jeff Tepper from the Cascade series last winter was doing just that. He was saying, these aren't all arc magmas. I've got the geochemistry to prove that these are not all arc magmas. Do you remember that from last winter? They're older than 46 million years old in the Cascades. They've got boron, beryllium, whatever, all that stuff. I've already forgotten half of that stuff. But Tepper's an expert on geochemistry with magmas and what sort of tectonic model we can present to explain that geochemical detail. I got to call Jeff Tepper and see if he's willing to spend some time with Bob's work here and see what he has to say about it. Okay, I want to finish with Docky before we get to the top of the hour. I've got 10 minutes, and I sketched out a few things. And let's see if this works. I just need to peek here quick, see what else I have. Well, let's just continue with this before I try some stuff with Docky. So this is backwards on purpose to show westward subduction. So pretend this is North America being pulled under, let's say, Wrangellia and friends out in the Pacific Ocean 100 million years ago. But maybe this is the cartoon for every one of our 6 collisions. I don't know yet. This is, as Bob said in his recent slideshow to the Zentnerds, this continental crust does not want to go down. It's going to be resistant to subduct. The ocean crust is happy to do it. So this ocean crust is pulling continental North America under the thick crust of the Wrangellia and friends, or Wrangellia composite terrain, to use the Alaskan lingo. And then this thing pinches off and finally sinks. And I think Bob is saying as soon as you pinch this thing off and the ocean slab starts sinking into the mantle, the collision's over. There's no reason to keep colliding. And in fact, there's a springboard effect where the upper plate rises. That's the exhumation. That's the sudden lifting and removal of a bunch of material. This is backwards on purpose as well. Chris Mattinson, can you remind me who did this? Chris gave this to me, and I need to credit this guy, this gal, whoever made this. But this is a detailed simulation of not only pinching off the ocean plate when it finally detaches from North America, but then here's this, right there. But the upper plate is doing all this funky stuff and even kind of marching trenchward. This is on a loop. I mean, this is all the simulation of what a collision will look like, and apparently has happened 6 times according to Hildebrand's worldview. Okay, I'm going to say one quick thing. This thing's still looping. You can't see it. I'm trying to talk to everybody. And there's insiders, and there's outsiders, and then there's an outsider to the outsiders, and that's Bob. So it's a high wire act that I'm trying to operate here. I'm not curing cancer, but this feels like I have a role where I have enough connection with many different folks who've been thinking about this for a long time, or maybe just 10 years. And my main objective is to not piss anybody off, like to the point where they just, I don't know. But I'm embracing the outsider to the outsiders, and yet I'm going to be working with some of the insiders. So I don't want to lean into that angle with this, but that's a reality. It's not everybody's locking arms and singing Kumbaya at these meetings. Yeah, okay. So let me finish. Now I got 5 minutes. Let me finish. Thank you so much for being here. We had 850 live viewers, and it looks like we had about 10,000 viewers of the first 2 episodes, 10,000 each of each. And so that interest is there, and I hope we can just keep this going. Let me try to put a fine point on my view of it. I've got 10 texts to read you in a few minutes. Docky. So we could add the sedimentary stuff if you wanted. I guess the Jurassic collisions don't have it, but I guess the idea is that there's sedimentary basins inland, like in the Western Interior Seaway, inland of the slab failure plutons and the thrust faults, that are all a record of this collision. You're like, you really have to go this far inland to look for clues for this collision? And it's like, yes, in part because I think I've got this, that with that looping animation we just said, author unknown, where after we collide it and we pinch this thing off, then this whole thing rises, and there's a bunch of material being shed away. Uplift intensifies erosion. And so most of the mountain range is gone. And that's why we're seeing a bunch of these plutons, I guess. But I guess this should be green. I guess this sedimentary stuff is the remains of this exhumation. You're like, boy, I don't know. I can't follow this. I can barely follow it. We're going to be working on this for a month or 2. But I think there's enough here. I hope you can see there's enough here now to make this work. Do I have anything else? I don't like being... So we can even go to something... something that I was holding up to the camera 4 winters ago. The Mount Stewart Pluton, 96 to 91, invades from below. It's invading what? Thrust faults. The Ingalls 162 being thrust up and over the Chihuahua Schist and the Nation Ridge gneiss. But if we tie this to this, is this very, very famous and locally loved Central Washington bedrock story, Mount Stewart itself? Is it a slab failure magma and not an arc magma? And I remember folks on the Dream Team kind of having a deer in headlights look. It's like, I don't, what? I'm going to become, I'm going to be going to every Pluton and asking, is it arc or is it slab failure? Arc or slab failure? Arc or slab failure? And I think Bob has figured out how to decide the arc magmas are older than the slab failure, because the arc magmas were there before the collision, and then we kill the arc because we close the ocean basin, and suddenly we have a bunch of magmas after the collision, and they're not arc magmas because we don't have any more subducting ocean plate. This seems too elegant and too simple. It seems too elegant and too simple. You know why? Because nobody believes it. Can it be that simple? You're like, that doesn't sound simple to me. The way I see it right now, it seems simple. And is there geochemistry and map patterns and other, whatever Bob said, old-fashioned geology relationships that just bear this out? Wow. Oh, should I just do this just because we have it? I don't know how to use the iPad effectively for our uses. I think we're cutting it there. And I thank you for our solid hour. Please recall that I'm trying to do a solid hour of straight-ahead geology. And then if you stick around with us afterwards, there's certainly more geology, like the 11 texts that I'm about to read from Bob Hildebrand and some of your live questions. But my goal, I'm reminding you, is to have a nice, solid 60 minutes so that those that want to keep up with the series but don't have tons of time know that they have 60 minutes to share with us. So we are done with the solid 60 minutes of geology for today, Thursday, and it's 4 o'clock Pacific time. And less than 48 hours, I'll be with you again. And I have no idea what I'm going to do on Saturday. Maybe it's another improv. But I know we'll be going back to Bob's slideshow now that we have some of this, I don't know what to call it, this framework. I need a phrase for this. For these sets of ideas. I need a phrase for this. I'll find it, but I need a phrase to describe that. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Still more than 800 live viewers. I guess we'll read the texts and then we'll go to your live questions. How about that? I'll give you a shot out the window just to catch your breath. There's Shelf Cam. It's getting darker out there now. The Move a Globe is still doing its thing. We got Hildebrand books just strewn all over the place. No big deal. Vinman's whales. And camera's still hanging on. Rainy all day except for the last 2 hours. And now we've got beautiful skies. It'll be dark by the time I start walking home. Okay. I guess I'm stalling. I'm afraid to open these texts, I think. Well, let's just be brave. Oh, what I did there. Okay. Drum roll, please. Okay. It's snarky, I can tell. All right. Oh, wait. Okay. Well, these are pretty short and random, I guess. Bob, is your keyboard not working today? Plutons, H, after 100 million. The thrust faults come during the collision. But once the slab fails, then there's no more convergence. But plutons cut the thrusts and the rest of the hinterland belt. Okay, thanks. So that's an important distinction. My fireworks with the thrust faults happening after the collision, I guess it's important to point out the thrust faults they're happening during the collision. That makes sense, I guess, if I think about it. Okay. Nonsense. The arc does not migrate from 100 to 84. Those are different magmas, both arc and breakoff. Okay, he's responding to either Trevor or Sean. And Trevor, Sean, you guys are good. You know that. And, we're all big boys here. We can handle a little bit of criticism. Bob goes for it. But I chose to include his comments on your stuff just because he has that approach with all of us. And I view it as healthy. It just stirs you and say, do I really know? Do I really like my explanation that I just gave in that live Q&A? So if that was unfair of me to show one little portion and didn't have a chance to defend yourself or whatever, I'm sorry. But I hope that the spirit of this whole thing is that we're just all out there trying to just put ourselves out there and try to learn together. Okay, Bob, I don't know if this is that helpful, but North America migrated west. I can't remember what we were talking about then. I'll prepare a talk on collisional origins. Okay, we got another mini slideshow coming sometime. Nick, maybe you've forgotten that we've written 3 or 4 books on the geochemistry of the arcs and breakoff magmas. Hey, no, I haven't forgotten, man. Come on now. Bob, I haven't forgotten. They're right here. You know as well as I that people say, I don't think I believe those discrimination plots. Because the people who say that say, I don't know enough geochemistry to really understand that that's right or not. I know all those plots are there. You got 1 million plots. I'm going to Jeff Tepper to see what he thinks because I trust his opinion. I'm guessing he'll be enthusiastic, but I don't know that. Don't take that the wrong way, Bob. Now, come on. All right, so time for live Q&A from you guys. Okay. Could you do uppercase, please? We'll do a series of live question and answer, and Bob, Sir Bob Hildebrand may be doing another mini slideshow in response to this show, which would be certainly welcome and delightful. But, don't expect that for sure. We still have 800 live viewers. I don't see action in the live chat right now. Why would that be? Are we frozen? Uppercase, please. Can you copy and paste? Sky Cooley. Hello, Sky. Nice to have you today. Sky's in Montana. Uppercase. Would love to hear Jeff Tepper's observations, questions, concerns about Hildebrand's plots distinguishing arc versus non-arc magmas. Thank you. Will. Wouldn't the force of the collision or collisions glue the terrains together, preventing northward displacement? It's an interesting thought, Will. I guess the answer is no, because every one of these collisions is cut in half. So it doesn't seem to be that strong. Sharon, would this explain a lot of the interior volcanism in British Columbia? I'm not sure. I don't think so. My gut is that that's too young, that's all younger than 50, but I don't really know that. Vinny, I don't understand. Why do we get post-collisional pizza box magmas since we are not subducting water? Vinny, it's a post-collisional slab breakoff thing, very similar to what we were doing last winter with breaking the Farallon plate or the Kula plate to have hot mantles surging shallower than it should be to get these strange signatures. You'll have to keep with us here. David, are the peninsula ranges in both Alaska and California? Which does the peninsula orogeny refer to? It is confusing, I agree. And I need to play with labels for our 6 collisions. Labels that are maybe not going to be totally new because I don't want to just reinvent a whole language, but I might tweak it somehow. I might get off of peninsular ranges, even though Bob is using it regularly. I might call this 100 million year old hit the Wrangellia hit, because we're going to go to Alaska and look at the Wrangellia composite terrain. Maybe that would be the best way to label that. I did hear by phone with Bob over the weekend. He's like, you don't answer any of the questions. These are good questions. You're not answering them. Most of the time I don't have an answer. But I read them to say, good question, and we might be able to talk about that later on. Seismic Mike, was subduction westward before all the collisions we discussed today, or just some of them? Thank you for that reminder. I'm going to show one more. I got to detach myself. Hang on. Boy, I really detach myself. I hope these things still work. I got to figure out how to lay out my papers so that they're all within arm's reach. Red right. I'm not sure I even need to hear myself anymore. I'm not showing any more videos. Let's go to Docky and whoever it was, Seismic Mike, wondering, is every collision westward? Here's where Bob, I found this slide from somewhere, Bob. I don't know if you still are happy with it or if you've moved on from this. But this is a nice way to summarize today. And Bob has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 collisions. I think this chart from this talk was to emphasize the opening and then closing of a particular seaway. I may be wrong. But you'll notice, Mike, that Bob has westward subduction labeled for 4 of these. And for all I know, the 5th as well. But I'm not sure. Couple more. This is good. Still got a few minutes. I'd love to just keep. Here we go. Yeah. DT. How much of the collision impact is considered the shape of the terrains? How much of the collision impact is considering the shape of the terrains? I don't know how to answer. I don't even know how to comment on that, DT. Merle Beck, back in the day, always was commenting on how long and thin these terrains are, and is that important? I don't know how to answer that. Eddie, assuming westward subduction, is it possible the break-off exhumation is responsible for the rise of the Colorado Plateau and the draining of the inland seaway? Okay. Well, first of all, Eddie, thanks. Everybody seems to love the interior seaway. I'm missing why that is. The westward interior seaway or whatever, that people always ask about that. That's right up there with craters of the frickin' moon. So that's my first comment. How does the Colorado Plateau fit into this? I mean, that's just, I'm sure Bob has comments there too. A few more. David, are we going to hear about the magmatism in southern Alaska, Wrangels, etc.? Seems like most of BC Yukon is transform faults, then changes back to subduction magmatism. It's likely we're going to get into that, David. I don't know much at this stage. But you heard what I think I want to be doing this whole winter. I want to keep asking, what kind of magma is this? Arc or slab failure? Do we have the geochem for each of those magma bodies to be definitive about it? And Bob probably has it all laid out. And then that pattern, I think, would then help us see, oh, yeah, this has to be westward subduction, subduction away from the North American continent, or this needs to be hey man, this has to be eastward subduction here. We've got eclogites and blue schist and other things, and we don't have the slab failure stuff. And if it's all folded into a Z like the Alaska terrain wreck, then we get into that. If we get into Karn with slab failure stuff and slabs in the mantle and so on. I'm down to live, looking for a couple more, and then we're done today. The West is big. Explore it. Is this the same westward subduction Karn Siglock talks about? Yes, some of them for sure. So I think Bob and Karin are sometimes on the same page. And Karin and Stephen Johnston sometimes are on the same page. But that's also something I want to explore. Where do they differ? Where does Bob differ from Karin? Where does Karin differ from Stephen and Mitch Mahalanuk and Basil and the team that I'm working with, the Purdue folks? Do they not want to talk about any of those models? Sharon, we'll finish with you. What types of data still need to be collected to confirm the westward subduction to satisfaction of all? Yes. Right. Do we have enough data to feel strongly that we need westward subduction in certain places? Last Bob text is, it's not my fault that they don't understand it. A toast to you. Here's to your health. Here's to the health of your family and your friends. Here's to everyone in your community. We all need community. At least that's my opinion. And this is a community. And hopefully you have other communities that you enjoy as well. Very good. I think I will close by giving you a shout out the window as we approach darkness here in Ellensburg, Washington, USA. I will see many of you, I hope, live on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, less than 48 hours from now. All I know is that we'll be returning to Bob's slideshow for at least portion. We want to finish that 2025 slideshow that accompanies Bob's new paper. And beyond that, I may be reacting to more comments from Bob after this show, or I'll come up with something else. I'm not teaching tomorrow, so I'll be able to just bear down and put something together. Thanks, everybody. I love you, even though this isn't working anymore. We still got to work on that stuff, Nat. I love you, and we'll see you Saturday morning. Thank you. Episode C. How many collisions? 6. Sounds like. Maybe more. Stay tuned. See you later. Little sneak peek for Saturday. Goodbye.